Hi everyone, this is Lisa. Welcome back to another video tutorial. Today we're going to be making a faux metal embellishment for our card. You can see it there in the bottom right. And there's a close-up of it. These are a lot of fun to make and super easy. So we're going to be using the Country Road, and then we're going to be using the Sentiment from Special Celebrations. Okay, so all of these measurements for these pieces are going to be on my blog, and the link for that will be below in the description. I've sped this up quite a bit because it's a lot of embossing, heat embossing, and you've seen me do that a lot of times. So we're just going to kind of fly through this part. So the first thing I'm embossing here is the plant. I don't know what these are, but we're going to be embossing this part here on a piece of crumb cake. And I have made a little boo-boo that you will see here in just a second. I didn't realize it when I had embossed it, and then when I was all done, I saw it. So normally if you get a little embossing powder where you don't want it, you can just brush it off. But I didn't see it until it was already on there. But I figured it blended in with this greenery, whatever kind it is. I don't know if they're weeds. Maybe they're weeds. Who knows? Okay, so now I have that done, and see there's where my little boo-boo is, but I think it's okay, so we're just going to leave it. Now, I don't know if you've ever seen anyone use a coffee filter when they're embossing. It works out really well because you can pour the embossing powder from your cup that it comes in into the filter, and then when you're all done, you can just pour it back into your cup, and it's completely no mess. So I'm stamping the sentiment here, and we're going to emboss that in the copper. And the other good thing about the coffee filters is that you can reuse them. Okay, so I have some where I don't want it, and this is what I was talking about, using the brush to just brush away the embossing powder where you don't want it. And we're going to go ahead and heat set this. And that part's done. So the next thing we're going to do is, this is how we're going to start making our embellishment. Here I have two scrap strips. I think they're about 1/2 inch each, and I'm putting them together just for strength. And yes, I'm using contraband tape, so don't tell anybody. I'm out of tear and tape, and snail isn't strong enough, so I have to use my trusty ATG. So I'm punching out a circle that's 1.5 inches, and I'm going to attach this to that strip of cardstock that we've just put together. This is going to serve as a handle because there isn't any way that we can hold on to the circle while we're embossing it. Okay. So the first thing we're going to do is grab our Versamark ink. And I have a scrap piece of paper here. And we're going to just generously apply it, taking the ink pad right to the circle. And make sure that you get it well covered. Now I'm bringing in the copper embossing powder again, and I'm pouring it right over the top of that where we put our Versamark. And we'll repeat this process 4 times actually. I'm using this cutting board because it's heat resistant, and that way I don't catch anything on fire like my scrap paper. Don't ask me how I know that. I've caught my paper on fire before. Or not on fire actually, but singed it pretty good. Now there's a couple of ways you can go about this. You can wait in between each layer for it to dry or not to dry, but to cool, and then add more Versamark. But if you're really quick, you can go ahead and just dip it back into the embossing powder, which is what I've done. Okay, so I'm prepping my stamp, and I put Versamark on it because this is the last layer. And then after this, we're going to go ahead and stamp into our embossing powder. I just want to make sure that this is really cool before I take my the Versamark to my piece here. So you could also just do this on a regular like square piece of paper and then punch it out, but I like the look of how the embossing powder sort of spills over the edge, so that's why I do it this way. So you can see it's all nice and shiny and not bumpy. And now I'm going to press the stamp that's covered with the Versamark down into the embossing powder while it is still warm. And I'm holding it there for a couple of minutes. And there we have it. Isn't that cool? I just love it. So we're going to let this cool completely, and while we're waiting on it to cool off, we're going to go ahead and put our card together. This is the layered black piece, and I'm going to emboss it with the Wood Planks Dynamic Embossing Folder. And here you go. It has two sides. You can use either. I'm going to use the one that I have facing up here. So here's our card base. Next, we're going to add our copper foil sheet. And I do recommend using a strong adhesive on the copper foil sheets and the glimmer paper because it's heavier, so you need something to tack it down pretty good. Okay, so now I'm going to be adding my copper ribbon, and I'm just kind of eyeballing where I want it to be and sticking it on the tape that I've already put on the back. And now that I have it where I want it, I'm going to go ahead and run the tape over the top of it. Okay, so now that I have that all in place, I'm going to layer my sentiment on top of that small black piece. And then I'm going to add the other crumb cake piece that has that greenery on it, or whatever it is. Yeah, I have a little wrinkle in there, so I fixed that. And now I'm adding the sentiment to the top of that, kind of butting it up to the top there. And now our embellishment is dry and cool. And so I'm bringing in some dimensionals now, and I'm going to place that over the top of the ribbon. Be generous with your dimensionals because this piece is a little bit heavy. And then I'm just going to attach it to the card. And there we have it. Isn't that cool? I really love it. I haven't done this technique in a long time, so it was a lot of fun. So I hope you enjoyed today's video. Please subscribe to my channel, and until next time, happy crafting. Bye for now.